Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Macaw Podcast Universe.
Hello.
The MPU, as it were.
Yeah.
My name is Micah Macaw.
My name is Jordan Macaw.
And we exist to prove people wrong when they say...
sequels are never better than the originals.
And today we're going back to, in some regards, the first series we've ever completed.
Yeah.
Because we started with the MCU, but that took us years to complete. And our second series was Mad Max. So there's probably a lot of listeners that are like, why are they even covering this movie?
Why did we do Mad Max so early?
I think we just wanted to watch them, yeah. I was thinking about, like, for a couple of years, I could have named every series we covered in order, and I could not do that now.
No.
I think I could get to Shrek, and that's it.
I couldn't get past Mad Max.
Yeah. Well, we've covered a lot, and yeah, this is an original series. You know, if you're like, man, I want to go back and listen to it, I have no idea how good it is, because I'd like to think we got a lot better as we've gone along. But anyway, but yeah, so we're talking about Furiosa.
Yep,
we are. Do you want to say anything about it before we get into production, or?
I mean, sure. First time I saw it was just the other day in theaters. Micah and I rewatched Fury Road leading up to this movie in anticipation. And I gotta say, for me, it made my expectations way too high for this one.
Yeah.
So I liked this movie, but I think I had a few issues with this movie, and it's not even close to as good as Fury Road. Not even close. But it was still good. There's still a lot I liked about it.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I've landed.
Yeah, so I would definitely say my expectation got too high. Because I think the thing about Fury Road that I think really helped the movie is I was excited to see it because my dad showed me all the Mad Max movies and we went and saw it. But it was like, in a way, it had like no business being that good.
Yeah, totally.
So it was just like, oh, cool, a new Mad Max movie. And then everyone who saw it was like, this is like one of the best action movies ever made.
Yeah.
You know? And so then with a follow-up, it's just tough to live up to that.
Yeah.
What I love about the movie is I don't think George Miller ever set out to try and top Fury Road.
No.
You know, like... What I respect,
it's a very different movie, this movie.
Very different. What I like really, really respect about him as a filmmaker is he is like absolutely not satisfied with doing the same thing. Even though there are now 5 Mad Max movies, they are all so different. It's crazy.
Totally.
And that's not even talking about the rest of his filmography. Mm-hmm. Like the man is a true artist, and I love that about him. But yeah, I like this movie. I like this movie as well. I had some issues as well. I think we pretty much agree on everything from the temperature I got of the room. It's certainly growing on me, and I think I will like it more upon a second viewing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Should we talk? Let's talk how it's made a little bit first. So this is directed by George Miller. He made Fury Road, and then he made 3,000 Years of Longing, which is a fantastic movie.
Oh, movie is so good.
Certainly one of my favorites, probably my second favorite.
That movie, this is the best way I can describe it for myself. That movie was like, when I think about it, it's like me trying to recall a movie from my childhood that I really liked, but was also a very strange movie. Like a Terry Gilliam-esque weird. And me recalling it now is like, what was that movie? And trying to search for it.
It feels like a dream.
It feels like a dream. Like, does this movie actually exist? And you're like, I remember this weird thing about it and this weird thing about it. And someone would say, you're describing 2 different movies. And it's like, no. That is, both things are in this movie. And it felt like a fever dream in all the best ways.
And since it was not a huge box office hit, it also feels like, oh, did you see 3,000 Years of Longing? And it's like, what's that?
Yeah, I'm surprised we got it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, me too. You and I were like over the moon to go see that movie. It
was so good. I loved it.
We were just like, oh my gosh, we're getting it. Mm-hmm. Like, get the tickets. Let's go. So is she waking up?
I think she's just moving positions.
Oh, moving positions. Okay. So he makes that movie, and then he makes this movie. So that catches you up on George Miller since last we talked about him. This movie is written by George Miller and written by Nico Lathauris, and he's a writer on Fury Road, and he was a car mechanic in the first Mad Max movie.
Cool.
The cinematography is by Simon Dugan, who did a little movie called Underworld Evolution.
Okay.
And works with Len Wiseman.
Oh.
But he also did Lego Ninjago movie and The Great Gatsby. And knowing that he made The Great Gatsby, I'm like, that's a great pick for this movie. Someone who made that movie, because that movie is so wild looking. And I'm going to deep dive on the music because I found an article, and guess what? I think if you listen to any other podcast on Furiosa, you're not going to learn about this music stuff. So there's a it's something I'm like subscribed to, and as a musician, and they sent me like this magazine this month,
Cool.
and it's the
newsletter.
Yeah, so this is Tom Hulkenberg, and he did he did Fury Road as well. And so how did you feel about the music in Furiosa?
I don't really remember it.
Okay, that
I will say for me though, I'm realizing that I don't remember like any score ever.
Well, okay, there's actually a lot of stuff that is in regards to what you just said that I'm going to read.
Okay.
Which I'll get to in a second. So first of all, he described this movie because the interviewer was basically asking him like, how do you differentiate when you're making the next movie in a series?
Did he do the last one?
He did Fury Road.
Okay.
And the scores to both movies are quite different.
Okay.
And he said, well, the last movie is third person and this movie is first person. So that's something I consider.
Interesting.
Where it's like we're watching Mad Max and the chaos and we're outside of it.
Sure.
Whereas this movie is like, it's Furiosa's story.
Okay.
So he's like, there you have a difference. He also said the last movie is 48 hours and this movie is 20 years. I think it's actually 15 years, but... and so he's like, that's something different. And then he also talked about, I'll read this quote about like the first movie and then how it relates to this movie. So he said...
First movie what?
Fury Road. He didn't work on the other ones. If I mess up, I mean Fury Road.
You mean Fury Road, yeah.
So he said, quote, it really fitted the bill musically to do a crazy over-the-top rock opera, except for the middle part of the movie where Charlize's Furiosa meets the women and she finds out that there is no more green place. And that's where the music became very lyrical and very delicate.
I do remember that.
Yes. That's when we heard the didgeridoo and the duduk, I think is how it's pronounced, at a certain point where she talks about the green place. So we already knew that if Furiosa starts at the green place, it's going to be super important that we start the music with those instruments that we already used in Fury Road. So that's really cool. So then this speaks to, I think, your experience with the music. And it's kind of funny because as the movie started, I was like, oh, I feel like the music's not quite as like up to par as the last one. But by the time the movie ended, I was like, oh, the music was pretty fantastic in this. And my dad was like, man, the soundtrack to this was amazing. And I was like, yeah, totally. And I think it speaks to these next two things. So he said, I was in big discussion with George. How do you make music that is felt but not heard? A very big conceptual thing, which he was very specific about. The third element was the didgeridoo and the duduk, people living in harmony with nature. And then the fourth element was all those recurring sounds we'd established in Fury Road, the panicked string riffs, that over-the-top percussion, those big brass moments. But it's a way, way more subtle score in this movie than it was back then. That was blaring from beginning to end. This is not.
Okay.
And then he also says, so he mixed the score, which is unusual for a composer.
Oh, okay.
Him and one other person, they mixed the score. And he said this, which I think speaks to your lack of memory of scores as a whole and like music watchers. And this kind of blew my mind and made me rethink the last like 20 years of scoring.
Oh, okay.
He said, it's interesting that when you talk with fans of film music, they think that it's the fault of the composer that there's hardly any recognizable themes now in cinema. But that's not how it works. Directors have been switching from what they liked 25, 30 years ago to what they like right now. So for instance, James Cameron may still love big melodies, but George does not. He wants to hear a more modern approach to music, and it really depends per director on what they want to be hearing. when you start analyzing movies over the last 40 years, it's clear how the role of traditional themes and harmonies have been replaced by more sound palette type scores. And it's really the director that is steering that process, not the composer.
Okay.
Does that not kind of blow your mind?
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then he cited Sicario, and he said how much he loves that score.
Okay.
And he's like, that is a score where, like, if there was melody in it, it would ruin the entire like vibe of the movie.
Sure.
But it's such a memorable score, but it's just sonic, basically. And I'm like, that is crazy.
Very interesting.
And then just two more things about the score, because I love it. He said, quote, this is so unbelievable. I truly believe the most powerful thing a composer has is knowing when not to write music.
Yeah.
And then finally, there's a huge set piece in the middle of this movie. And he said, people ask how come there's a massive action scene in the middle of the film without any music for 5 or 6 minutes. And then when the music does come in, it's so minimal. And it's because during that scene, we don't even know that her character is there until later. And then when we join her, she's purely focused on staying out of the way and staying alive. The score had to make sense in that context. So with Furiosa, it's a very different approach to music altogether.
Gotta love that.
Freaking awesome. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want to hit some actors?
Just keep going.
Okay. So the budget to this movie is $168 million. As we're recording, we don't know how much money this movie's going to make, but yeah. Lathoris and Miller had spent 15 years writing Fury Road, if you remember. And they, during that time, wound up writing extensive backstories for all of the characters. And so one of the, of course, we exist to prove people wrong when they say sequels are never better than the originals. But when we're talking about prequels, this is like the hardest series thing to do, is to make a satisfying prequel.
Yeah.
And this was the big question I had going into this is like, what could there possibly... Oh, Siri
can answer why it's so hard.
I found this on the web for you. So for me, going into this, I'm like, how is there going to be a satisfying emotional thrust for a character that we saw, like, her grow and change in the previous movie?
Mm-hmm.
I think they absolutely accomplished that in this movie.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, man, this is like way more, like, even on that level, it's like way more brilliant than like any other prequel.
Mm-hmm.
But then I find out that they wrote the Furiosa script before they shot Mad Max Fury Road.
Mm-hmm.
So they have all that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, you saw that as well?
Yeah.
And so Charlize Theron was able to like reference the script for this movie and use that to inform how she played the character.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. And maybe that's your fix, is just don't make prequels unless you already wrote them or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think that always fixes it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times you have prequels because you're doing a book series.
Right.
And you still can't do it well.
Right.
So, I don't know. It just is the person competent the people competent who's working on it, writing it, directing it, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. The only successful prequel that comes to mind for me on a story level is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snake, which I thought was excellent in that regard.
Yeah, that one's so far outside of the Katniss thing, though, that I think that is absolutely to their advantage. So it is like, even by the end of this, but the story was so much more gray area than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
But no matter however that ended, for me, I wasn't like, even if the good guys win, the bad guys are still going to win for a lot longer.
Yeah.
Because the story was, like, the characters were so much more complex than that.
Yeah, totally.
That's why it worked.
Yeah. And it's just, now I'm going through this rabbit hole of, like, prequels, and the only other thing I can think of are, like, the Lord of the Rings movie, like, the show, I mean.
Okay.
Like, that's doing pretty well, and I'm enjoying that. But that's also, like, you have someone who's written, like, the histories of this world. So it's like, this is kind of like the Furiosa thing, where it's like, there's already stuff there. You just have to execute it well.
Yeah,
you know?
I think so too.
But yeah, it's really hard. So when this movie probably, even if only by default, is like the best prequel ever made. Like, I don't know.
There's
Call
Micah's
in.
sweeping statement. I was just waiting for something like that.
Call in if you have a better example. But yeah, there was at one point where they considered making like an anime style Furiosa movie.
Okay.
Which I would have liked to have seen that as well.
Yeah.
In 2010, Miller announces that they're going to shoot Fury Road and Furiosa back to back.
Okay.
Obviously, that did not happen.
Yeah.
Fury Road comes out, and then in 2017, Miller's production company files a lawsuit over unpaid salaries with Warner Brothers. They go back and forth. I don't know how that resolved, but obviously Warner Brothers distributed this movie and produced it, so they figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember that when that came out, it was like, ooh, are they even going to be able to make Furiosa?
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And then as of 2019, still planning on this movie. It's either this movie and another Mad Max movie, or this movie and 2 more Mad Max movies.
Okay.
And as of like an interview I saw from this year, he wants to make Mad Max The Wasteland. So this, to me, when this movie finished, I thought,
which would
like,
be a sequel to Fury Road.
Yeah, I think it would be like 1 year after Fury Road, something like that.
Okay.
So it's just funny because when this movie ended, I thought like, oh, I feel like he has, just the way it ended, which we'll get into when we're in our spoiler section, it felt like this is everything he's wanted to say.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it feels like a very final statement. But then he's like, nah, I got more. And
I mean, I believe it.
yeah. But I'm like, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
As long as it's only George Miller making the movie.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think anyone else could take over this franchise.
Yeah.
So then, of course, so he thought about doing de-aging for Charlize Theron. And he said, he's like, some great filmmakers have used it, and he basically said it has yet to like suspend my disbelief. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's a good idea to use for this movie, which was a good decision, I think. So they cast Anya Taylor-Joy. Theron was disappointed, but understood. And did you read how they casted her? Like, what happened?
No, I don't. Oh, it was last night in Soho. He got like a pre-screening.
Yeah, he got it.
Yeah.
And I almost said Elijah Wood, but that is not the director of Last Night in Soho.
Nope.
Edgar Wright said, quote, do yourself a favor and grab the opportunity to work with her.
That's what he told him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then did you hear what she auditioned with to get the role?
She auditioned?
Yeah, he had her audition.
Okay, cool.
And she did the Mad as Hell scene from Network.
She did?
That was the scene he had her do.
Oh, wow. That's very fascinating.
Yeah. And folks, if you haven't seen Network, this is like your yearly reminder on this podcast to watch Network.
Yeah.
The movie is one of the best.
Yeah.
Yahya Abdul-Mateen II was cast in this movie.
I thought he's the third.
The third. Oh, is he?
I don't know. He auditioned to do what?
No, he was going to be the Tom Burke character.
Interesting.
But scheduling conflicts had to drop out.
He'd be so good in these movies.
He would be. Hopefully, I mean,
there's a future opportunity.
Yeah, like Miller and, guys like Jonathan Demme and some other, like, there's some directors that are just like, this is, I try to, they create sets and environments that people want to work in.
Yes. And
I know that these are like grueling shoots, these Mad Max movies, and like Charlize and Tom Hardy had a bad time. But there's some quotes in here from.
Sounds like the people in this movie too.
Yeah, but they're not faulting.
Were they faulting him in the last movie? A little bit.
Well, I think in the last movie, I think like Tom Hardy and I think Charlize was like willing to do stuff, whatever he asked. But I think they were both like, "What is this guy doing?" Oh. And then when they saw the movie, they're like, oh, that's what he was doing.
So I read a quote from Chris Hemsworth that
I think I have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me.
He was like, George Miller has everything thought out. It's basically all storyboarded, every detail that he wants. And he said that oftentimes when you're shooting an action movie, you do a lot of like, oh, let's just do this. Oh, I just thought of this thing. Let's try and do it this way. All this stuff. But for George Miller, it's like, it will be done this way.
Oh,
which
I didn't
means
see
he's
that.
like,
Yeah.
it is demanding a lot from a person, from an actor,
Yeah.
from the crew, because it's like, it's got to be the way that I envisioned it. And Chris Hemsworth was saying that that's really hard, but also really challenging in a good way, because and
Okay.
it was great. It was because it was so different to work in that way. And it was also great because you knew like you could trust him on what he was doing. That's how he
Okay.
took it. I'm paraphrasing the quote.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So
yeah.
you can see how like Hardy and Theron might be like, what are you doing? Like, we don't trust you on this. Like, you
Yeah.
haven't.
Well, especially since the Mad Max movie hasn't come out in so many years. At
It's like
that
your
time.
last movie's Happy Feet too. Like,
Exactly.
You know.
So it is like, what have I signed on to do here?
Yeah.
I'm shooting in Nambia, really?
Right,
Yeah.
right. So maybe I'm wrong in that, but it feels like it's like he's still like the writer of this movie was in the first movie and is clearly a friend. Like, it seems like he has like a genial way about him, and like, we're all family trying to make a movie together. Like, it feels like these productions are still independent productions.
Oh, sure. I did read that quote from Anya too, where she said this is like the loneliest movie she's ever done.
Yeah.
Especially because her character only has like 30 lines of dialogue, and it just felt like she in that quote, which anyone can, I'm sure, find easily, is like, she's like, let me be clear. George Miller was fantastic to work for.
Yeah.
And he took care of us. But it was the hardest movie she's ever done, the loneliest movie she's ever done. And she's like, the one scene where she like really screams, she's like, I had to fight for that scream for 3 hours, 3 days, 3 months or something, like for a really long time.
It was fight for it. What does that mean?
I'm assuming like it was just like take after take. He, it's like, he's like, it's his vision. He has a certain idea, and it's like, it needs to be more like this. Now it needs to be more like this, or it needs to be more like this. And just really, really hard.
Oh, man.
Because they need to do it his way.
Yeah.
But from what I've read, none of that feels, because sometimes when I hear that, no matter what people say about being like they're trying to be nice because they're still working in the industry, it does. I did truly get a sense of like he was a good guy to work for. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, because the person that comes to mind is David Fincher when you talk about modern day directors that are exacting.
He's like take again, take again, take again, take again.
But like, then you hear some actors like Downey when he worked with him on Zodiac, and he was like, this is like the worst experience in the world. I hate this.
Right.
And then you hear other actors who are like, working with Fincher is the best because you finish a take and he goes, how was it? Are we good? And he's like, do you feel good? And you're like, not really. And he's like, all right, let's do another take.
Yep.
So it's like a perspective thing too.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, that's the famous story about Downey and Zodiac, where he's like, okay, are we done with the take? And then he's like, come over and look at it. And he shows him the take, and then Downey's like, all right, let's do another take.
Yeah, yeah.
So I would imagine maybe Miller's in that zone too, where it's like, no, let's just do another one. We're going to get it right. I mean, it's taken us 9 years to make another Mad Max movie. Why skip out on stuff now?
I think I'm surprised to learn that. I am, and I'm not surprised to learn that. Because what kind of surprises me is because this is an action movie, it's like you do have the opportunity to be that specific.
Yeah.
Like I can just imagine they're doing some kind of crazy sequence, and it's like it wasn't exactly what he thought it was.
Yeah.
So we have to start all the way over. I know I'm like literally you can't do that all the time because some things cost too much money to set up again. But it's like you're already doing these terribly hard action sequences, and you're making people do it again and again and again.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But probably being a stunt performer, this is probably a dream gig.
Oh my gosh.
Like it's like you're like, I want to work on John Wick or Mad Max. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Also saw that Anya does not have her license, and
wow.
Learned how to do it was some vocab word for a stunt thing. Because she had to go to stunt school and like learn how to drive, but
crazy.
She not only did she have to learn how to drive just normally, without having a license, she had to learn how to do stunts.
Yeah.
Too.
Wow. Dang. Yeah, this would be tough for me. I don't think I would be very good on the set of Mad Max. It's like, do you ever do that thought experiment of like, if I was an actor, would I want to be in this or whatever?
Oh yeah.
Because I've always like that, there's certain directors, and George Miller is one where like, if I was an actor, of course I'm not, and I don't want to be. And he called me, I'd be like, yes, sir. Whenever you need me, I will make the time and I will do it. But then at the same time, I'd be like,
alone for these movies is I don't want to be in the Australian wilderness. Desert, no thanks.
But
that's
it could
scary.
be fun.
Could be, but it sounds terrifying.
I'd want to be a Morton Joe, having to wear that getup. I know it'd be a lot of makeup, but man, you got to feel cool when you look in the mirror wearing that. But yeah, speaking of the crazy exacting nature of this movie, that in the middle of the movie, there's this huge attack of the war rig scene, reminiscent of Fury Road, but quite different.
Yeah.
78-day shoot to get that scene.
I believe it.
200 stunt performers.
I believe it.
Yeah.
That was their money shot.
Oh, yeah, that's like the scene of the movie.
Yeah.
Although I think my favorite scene, which is rare, I think was the like emotional climax of the movie.
When?
With her and Dementis at the end. I think that was my favorite scene of the movie.
I think mine was at the bullet farm.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was great too.
Well, no, I think the big rig was probably my favorite. It was the craziest, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and this speaks to the on-set stuff. This is what Anya says. We all went in to make this, not excusing any kind of behavior, wanting to be extra kind to each other. Especially for me, I'm a big George Miller fan. I wanted to make sure he felt respected and heard and cared on set. And then she says the thing where she says, I've never been more alone in making a movie. I don't want to go too deep into it, but everything that I thought was going to be easy was hard. Talk to me in 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I saw, too, that she was saying, like, in terms of him being very specific about things and her having so little lines, where she was like, he was even specific about, like, not showing my face, not showing my mouth, only showing my eyes, and that's the only thing I could use. And so it's like, I'm only going to be showing your eyes, and this is what you're feeling right now.
Yeah.
Act, like, do it, and sounds so hard. And I also saw that she wanted to shave her head like Charlize did, but her modeling contracts prevented that from happening.
Really?
So she couldn't shave her head. And then I think George Miller, there was something he said about it too, where he like was almost made it feel like, yeah, that'd be cool, of course, but her hair is so iconic, you can't do that.
So how'd they work around that? Is it just like a wig?
It's just a wig.
That's crazy.
It has. I mean, there's no
short
other way.
wigs that are that good blow my. I would never have guessed. That's like.
I only know that because I do not understand how long her hair could be. How long it is now if she had shaved her head.
Oh, right.
Based on following her and stuff.
That's crazy. That is like her. That is Portlandia level wig work. They probably got the Portlandia people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I folks, if we've never talked about it on mic, Jordan and I often, semi-often, talk about how of like every
usually
TV
there's
show.
A bad wig. That's when we talk about it.
Like every TV show, like the best wig work in the world is freaking Portlandia.
Well, they've won so many awards for it. And whenever we watch something where they have where someone's wearing a bad wig, we're just like, they didn't use the Portlandia people. It's obvious.
Well, it's crazy because, and again, don't watch the show anymore. Don't want to watch it. Don't recommend it. But Righteous Gemstones, I think for the budget of that show and how prestige it is presented, it is some of the absolute worst wig work I've ever seen.
Especially that last season. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What's his name? Bad Ape from War of the Planet of the Apes. Steve Zahn.
Yeah.
Had like the worst wig I've ever seen.
Also, the other guy, Lucas Haas or whatever, his wig was really bad
and a terrible beard. Beard. It was
I do not understand
why didn't you just hire David
bad.
Cross?
Like, what?
Why didn't they just hire David Cross? Because it was a David Cross beard. Like, that's how he looks now. Why didn't they just hire him?
I just don't get in movies and shows when you have people who wear a beard, and what you're kind of signaling, like in that show, is they're like backwater people. They're not like Portland guys having a beard.
Yeah.
So why are they not scraggly? They're not scraggly enough, and they're like not patchy enough.
Yeah.
They're just like, that man takes care of his beard.
Yeah.
It is. You can see with the shave line because it's not real.
Yeah.
And it's just the little things. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah, wigs, man. Well, that actually blew my mind more than some of the stuff we saw in the movie, knowing that's
wearing a wig.
That's crazy to me. And then my last note is I was just watching this George Miller thing where he was talking about a bunch of stuff for Vanity Fair, and he talked about how they were looking through stuff for production design and stuff, and they stumbled upon these photos from the 70s where police were doing, they would set up their motorcycles like chariots, and they'd have
No, they wouldn't.
they'd have like
What do you
2
mean?
motorcycles and do the thing that Dementis does.
Where?
Like, I think just to like parade around.
Where? That sounds awful.
Not like for show, like for like events.
Oh,
and
like
stuff.
a parade or something?
Yeah, not like
Oh,
not
okay,
like on
I'm like,
patrol.
geez, that is. How are we not talking about that in our culture?
No. I mean, that's not the impression I got. But I
Okay,
was like,
okay.
so the Dementis chariot thing is something you can actually do? That blew my mind.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But yeah, that's what I have for notes on Mad Max Fury or
Furiosa.
a Mad Max Saga.
Okay, so we've covered Anya before. We've covered Chris Hemsworth before.
Yeah.
Aaliyah Brown, who plays young Furiosa.
I can't imagine she's in much. This is her thing.
She's in 3,000 Years of Longing, True Spirit, 9 Perfect Strangers, The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart. Micah, she's in so much.
Okay. I stand corrected.
Children of the Corn, the original. I'm just kidding. Tom Burke plays Praetorian Jack. Is that how it was said?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
What does that word mean? Can you look it up?
Yeah.
It's spelled Praetorian.
Praetorian of or having the powers of a proter.
That I need more
Okay.
than that.
Now, each of 2 ancient Roman magistrates ranking below consul was the title granted by the government of ancient Rome to a man acting in one of 2 official capacities.
Okay.
So he must be like high up in there.
So Tom Burke, this is the big rig guy.
Yes.
He is in Only God Forgives.
Oh, okay.
He's in The Souvenir, Mank, The Wonder.
Yeah, I recognize him from Mank for sure.
Me too. And I think that's all I recognize him from. Oh, he's in Living. Maybe we recognize him from that.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Who is he?
I just can see him now. I think he was wasn't he like the guy he was helping to get the park?
Maybe he worked in the office with him.
Because weirdly,
that sounds right.
He kind of has a gentle face. Even
Why
though
are
in
you
this
saying
movie
weirdly?
well, it's like he's hard in this movie, but
he's so hard.
He does have a gentle face.
I gotta see pics.
He looks approachable.
Oh.
You know. But let's
yeah, I mean it's not readily coming up.
Yeah, I can't imagine it would.
I don't think he's who I thought he was. Okay, but yeah, so that's him. He was so good in this.
Yeah.
I was like watching this and I was like, oh, I would have a huge crush on this guy if I saw this.
Oh,
when I
sure,
was
yeah.
younger.
Yeah, he was awesome.
He's cute.
I loved when he came over the hill and walked back to her.
Oh yeah.
It was like, who is
It was like
this
teenage
guy?
Jordan, eat your heart out. Charlie Fraser plays Mary Jabasa, the mother.
Okay.
I believe so. Yeah. So she is in Anyone But You.
Okay. Huge hit.
The Skin I Live In.
I don't know what that is.
This looks like modeling. She's billed for a lot of modeling.
Okay.
That's like all I'm seeing actually. Yeah. Tom Ford stuff. Tory Burch, Mango, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
And then I don't know if you noticed the other girl that was with her at the very beginning of the movie with the mom. She is in the Fast and Furious franchise.
Oh.
She's the mother of Dom's child.
That was her?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. The mother of Dom's child. Was that the girl that...
Remember, so she was in, like...
Wasn't she in Fast 5 as like
5.
an internal agent, internal
Yes,
affairs or
yeah,
something?
Yeah. So
that was the same
It was
girl?
in Fast 5, and then later on in the one with Charlize where she's the worst villain ever to be on screen.
Yeah.
And she had her kidnapped with her child.
You're giving her the title.
She's really bad. And so bad that I'm like...
Dr. T.
So bad that I was like, she's in a bad phase for me right now. I am not excited to see her in a movie.
She's
But
on a tear.
We don't
bad.
need to talk about
We
it.
can.
Well, we have talked about it. But she kidnapped her and Dom's son, who Dom didn't even know that he had a son. And remember, then she like unceremoniously kills this lady.
On the plane, right?
On the
like
plane.
behind yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, that sent me down a bad rabbit hole.
Text my back.
On Blank Check, Griffith, actually it was Patrick Willems. I was watching one of his like response videos, and he mentioned, which actually kind of helps with Fast and Furious a little bit, and helps me understand the fact that that Vin Diesel is so obsessed with it. He said it is a friend of his compared it to D&D, where it's like,
I don't. Keep going.
oh, I just thought it was funny. It's like, oh, this character's gone, and now they're returning, and now they've been dead. Oh, we've raised them back from the dead. They're alive now.
We conjured the dead.
Where it is like, yeah, you're just playing D&D, but you have cars instead of magic. And I was like, that take works. That absolutely works. It doesn't make me like the series. It's just kind of funny.
Okay. Rictus Erectus is played by Nathan Jones. I'm not sure if we covered him in Fury Road, but he's the big guy. Yeah. He's in Fearless. He's in The Protector.
Protector, what is that again?
The Tony
Jaa movie.
Yeah, so I'm like seeing him now in that big scene at the end, the big fight.
I don't remember.
He fights a big white guy.
That's right, he does.
So that's him.
Yeah. You remember that shot in Protector 2?
Yeah.
Where Tony Jaa was in the background, and in the foreground there was a guy who was like on his phone, and he was like taking up the whole frame, and he just like looked at his phone and then was like, and walked away.
Yeah, I know, that was hilarious. He's also in Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah, okay. I buy it.
And other stuff.
Okay.
Mortal Kombat and such. Oh, he's in Hobbs and Shaw. Okay.
Okay.
Wait, let me see something about him. He's got a crazy face.
You better change the subject soon though, because you don't want to get me started on Hobbs and Shaw again.
Josh Hellman plays Scrotus, his brother.
Yeah. Pretty hilarious name.
Who
Scrotus?
was in Fury Road, but not as this character.
Oh, okay. Who is he in Fury Road?
Slit.
Okay.
So I don't know.
So he has the two worst names you could ever have, Scrotus and
he
Slit.
is in X-Men Days of Future Past and Apocalypse. I doubt we talked about him. He's also in Jack Reacher. He's in 13 Lives.
Oh.
Monster Hunter. And lots of other stuff. You remember him?
I just looked him up. He is the guy that him and Nicholas Hoult go out together.
Oh, yes. I do see that.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And then who was the guy who had the horns?
I don't know. I don't know who that was.
I'm trying. I just want to see if I can quickly find it.
Furiosa, horn guy. I thought for a second it was Bruce Spence, but it was not. Because Bruce Spence is in 2 and 3, not in 4, and I thought maybe he would return.
Not the Octobus.
For this one, but maybe that doesn't sound right though.
It was like with an M or something.
Yeah, I don't remember.
There's too many people. Okay, but that's about it. I would like someone else to hopefully agree with me that while watching this movie, I just really felt like the bullet farmer looked off, and I was convinced that because the actor has it's a different actor because the original actor died since Fury Road came out, and so in this movie, I didn't know that going into this movie.
Okay,
but when that character came on screen, it just seemed a little off to me, like CGI face. Potentially. No one agrees with me, and I can't find anything on the internet.
Yeah.
So I'm just probably wrong, and for other reasons of how I feel in this movie, I think I was just becoming a little fixated on stuff.
That's fair.
But
I think
just would like anyone else out there who was like, you know what, I thought his face looked a little off too. And I need to watch the movie again.
Yeah.
More if not for anything, just to see if his face does look that weird to me. But and I've seen the actor that they recasted for the character, and he looks nothing like him, which obviously I know you just do makeup.
It's the magic of makeup, and it's the magic of what they did to his mouth. I think more than anything else.
I would.
He has a ton of missing teeth. And
know
cavities and stuff in this movie.
Yeah, sure, fine, but yeah.
I mean, from what I remember,
he just looked a little off. Like they touched him up with CGI. Nothing crazy.
Yeah,
it just seemed like it wasn't moving.
It was funny though because Jordan said that, and she said it so just like Tarkin and Rogue One was kind of the vibe. And I was like, if that is de-aging, it is by far the best de-aging that's ever been in a movie.
Now that you read that quote too from
it's like he definitely
George Miller,
didn't use it.
Why would he not? Why would he use it for that?
Yeah.
When he has issues with the other thing. So it's probably not. It just looked a little wonky to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it would be weird, just conceptually, it would be weird because they've recast so many people. Like they've recast 2 of the main characters, throughout this series.
Totally.
So it'd be like, well, the Bullet Farmer, was that important?
Totally.
So before we get going on the plot, maybe we'll talk a little more about what we thought, and then we can spoilers and do the plot.
I would do spoilers now if we're going to talk a little bit more about how we feel.
Okay, spoilers now.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler.
But before we go into spoilers, I have to stop what I said earlier because I said that, like, by default, this is the best prequel ever, right?
Yeah. Oh,
I'm
you remembered Star Wars.
No, I remembered what is now my favorite series, Planet of the Apes. That so far has 4 prequels.
Yeah.
That I love.
Yeah.
Although we're still not totally sure if they're reboots or prequels yet. We'll find out. And don't come after me if you're like, they're clearly reboots because the director of the last movie said they were leading up to the 1968 movie. So, so I had to correct myself there because, of course I'm just talking about Planet of the Apes in my spare time and realized, whoops.
As you do.
Yeah. As we both do, I think now it's kind of just what we do now. Not a day goes by that I don't think about those simians,
Yep.
So, and I have heard word that this is the worst Memorial Day weekend in over 20 years.
What does that mean?
At the box office.
Oh, really? Why?
Except for the pandemic year. They're not counting
Why?
that. So little money was made.
Well, duh, but like what movies are playing?
Mad Max Furiosa, which won the weekend.
Yeah.
Garfield, which didn't. I guess the rats needed their cheese, but not that bad. Kingdom. But that's in its like 3rd or 4th week. Mm-hmm. So don't blame the apes, okay? And then like Fall Guys sitting there not making much money. I these movies just didn't open very well. I think Furiosa and Garfield needed to open like way higher for it to be a better weekend. So I'm not worried though. The movie's already made, $60+ million worldwide. It'll make its money back.
How much did Fury Road make though? Like, did it make way more? And so they're projecting even more for this one.
I think Fury Road opened to 45. So this movie opened to like 31.
Sure.
So it is lower, but I'm not like we should, be so scared about this or whatever. It's fine. Although having said that, I'm saying it's fine about a movie that I want to succeed. Mm-hmm. Whereas like when Fall Guy came out and it did pretty poorly, I'm like, yeah, it's bombing. But yeah, so that's that.
Spoiler alert! 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 Spoiler alert!
And then I just want to, before we take a break, just talk a little bit. So here we go. We're on the other side. So when the movie ended, I wasn't even sure I liked it because of what I'm about to talk about. And I just want to talk about it, get it out of the way, and throw it to the side. So we can talk about the rest of it.
Say it now.
So this movie has a ton of visual effects in it.
So did the last movie.
And so did the last one. So first of all, as we've said many times, we're not anti-CGI on this podcast. And I think if you're talking to anyone and they say like, oh man, I hate when movies use CGI and like that movie uses so much, but like Fury Road doesn't use any or whatever, run from that person. They don't know what they're talking about. Every
Fury
movie
Road
now
is riddled, and I don't mean that that way. It is riddled with CGI. It is how it is woven in that makes it look seamless. And they're still on top of doing a lot of CGI. The stunts are bananas.
Yeah.
And if you watch 3,000 Years of Longing and love it because you will love it.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
It is also
ton of CGI.
Full of CGI. And the movie, I actually think it's a lot of really wonderful uses of it. Because there's still a lot of fun practical stuff.
It adds to the
but there's a lot of like
for me.
Silly CGI-ness from my memory that I think is just that George Miller touch.
Yeah. And so like I think I saw a thing and it was just on Reddit. I didn't confirm that like Mad Max Fury Road has 2,700 shots in the movie and 2,000 of them have visual effects in them. Mm-hmm. So that's more than 2/3 of the movie. Anyone who says that movies aren't doing that now or are mad about it, they have no idea how many effects.
John Wick is riddled with special effects.
Top Gun Maverick,
yeah,
it looked so real and stuff. But I saw that there's this thumbnail that keeps popping up. I haven't watched the video, but it says no CGI is really invisible CGI, and I'm like, that is true. That's what people think.
Yeah,
they just don't make movies with any budget.
And you're making some point that you're being very long-winded about. But
we have a podcast.
I will say for Fury Road, there was a precedent that was set for me. I think
me
in
as well.
general, actually, I'm just not even going to say for me. I think that certain precedent was set that did bump up my expectations a lot on how this movie would look and how it would be. And some of that is like, this movie is so different from Fury Road. It's so much more story driven that it is not a wall to wall action movie.
Yeah.
With there still being a lot of action. But it in terms of special effects and the action in general, it did set a certain expectation for me that in this movie there were a lot of noticeable things.
Yeah.
That was disappointing.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I just there was enough of it that like halfway through the movie I was like, is this like Speed Racer? Like, am I supposed to not like this feels so CG and so obviously CG that it feels like cartoony.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the intention. But then there were some uses of it where I was like, I really don't think that's the intention behind that shot that I'm looking at.
My biggest thing, which is pretty insignificant, is the dogs for the most part were not real.
I don't think they ever were. I don't think.
And I just don't understand why. Because so much of it is them just being there.
Right.
And just like filling out this world. Why couldn't you just get real dogs? What's the deal?
Yeah.
I don't get that.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then even for some of the things that dogs did do in this movie, it's like you could just train it. I've seen dogs do some pretty incredible things.
Right.
So that was really confusing to me.
That was confusing to me as well. But then there was this shot in the movie, and I want to rewatch the movie to confirm this. So all 5 Mad Max movies, he really plays with frame rate.
Yes.
So he'll do things and play them at the wrong speeds that they weren't shot at and stuff like that. And there was a shot in the movie, and we're in spoilers, so where Dementis is sitting on his car, and the cars are driving around pulling Praetorian Jack around. And it's just stuck on him, and it's panning out slowly. And this woman starts walking, and she's like shuffling in a weird way that I was like, that's some terrible special effects. Like she's like, doesn't look right.
She's like janky.
Yeah, and then I went, whoa. I think what is going on in this shot is she's moving at like 60 frames a second, and Chris Hemsworth is still moving at like 30. So it looks janky because he is not moving at the same time lapse.
I guess computers,
yeah. I don't know for sure. That is my theory, though. I think probably 20% of what I thought was weird in this movie might be like, oh, there's different frame rates within the same shot.
Yeah.
That is a theory. I cannot prove it.
If that's true for that scene, I actually find that very interesting character-wise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Or he was just saying so still that you couldn't see the like quick blinks and stuff, you know?
Possible. Yeah.
But it's enough that I want to see the movie again to see how much of what I thought were bad special effects were actually just kind of innovative uses of frame rate.
Yeah.
That we just haven't seen and my brain didn't know how to process.
Yeah.
So all of that is there. Now I'm setting it aside. I'm not talking about the special effects anymore.
Oh, I might.
I'm done with it.
I might.
Well, and I'll jump in, but I just...
This movie is way more visceral than the other one, too. Like, there's... It's both movies are so incredibly violent. Duh. It's Mad Max. All of them are so violent.
Yeah.
And...
I mean, these movies inspired Saw.
But... Oh, yeah. But there's, for some reason, and maybe, I don't know, I'm a parent now. Maybe that's like 90% of how I feel about... that's about it. But so much of it felt so... like under my skin, gross, creepy, crawly for some stuff, and a lot of it was really good uses of like hinting at this terrible human depravity thing because we descended into madness that is hard for my brain to not go further with, and it's like, but what are they doing? And it's like, don't think about it, continue on with the movie, which I think is good.
That's good.
Like
that's
good world
M. Night.
building.
That's M. Night, where you always think his movies are R.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
but there is a lot of things that you do just see that are disgusting in this movie that aren't necessarily an action sequence disgusting.
Yeah.
It's just gross stuff that like was gross.
Yeah. I had definitely...
I don't think I would turn that's not me. That didn't... It doesn't mean I didn't like the movie. I can't talk.
Yeah.
I didn't like the movie less for any of those reasons.
Well, I think part of that So first of all, I praise any filmmaker that can do that, you know?
Yeah.
It's always like, how did you do that? Because like the scene where they were torturing her mom, I couldn't figure out what they were doing to
me
her.
neither. And that was more scary. I was kind of like, don't show. I
was worried
didn't
about it.
want to see it because I genuinely did not want to see what they were doing to
Yeah.
her. But then another part of me was like, I don't want to see it because it's worse that I can't. You know what I mean?
And I couldn't figure it out, and I couldn't, like, my mind was like thinking of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That made me
But
really uncomfortable.
It really, made me feel weird.
In a way, like, I haven't seen a torture scene that has disturbed me in that way in a long time.
And I think what made it worse was that he was forcing Furiosa to watch, but we still couldn't see what was happening.
Yeah.
And that's weird.
George Miller is pretty good at this.
Yeah. And then later, this was the other, like, really gross, uncomfortable moments for me was when she's still a child and Dementis first comes to Immortan Joe to be like, I'm laying siege to your kingdom.
Yeah.
Let's fight about it. And then Immortan Joe like unleashes his Hellions and they have to flee and stuff. And Furiosa's still chained inside the grate or the thing that she was in, but is like hanging down from it. And there are these people who live in holes and they're like, they are grabbing onto her and pulling her into a hole. And at first I was like, oh, maybe they'll get her and raise her and it'll be fine. But you saw like barely a snapshot of what was going on inside the hole. And you were like, oh, they're cannibals. They're eating people. And then
it was happening so fast, I didn't even process that until after the movie, and you pointed that out.
Yeah.
And I was like,
well, then later on, we go back in that hole because she does lose her arm, which I forgot that she lost her arm until she did. But she loses her arm, comes all the way back to Immortan Joe, but the hole people get to her first.
Yeah.
And she wakes up in the pit or the hole, and it is full of dead people. Like festering,
it's gross,
decaying dead people, and this lady is scraping maggots off of. Well, for the first shot in that scene, it's a shot on her arm. Yeah, that has been
there's maggots
off, and there's maggots all inside of it, and that was disgusting. Yeah, and then the camera like pans up to this lady who's scraping maggots off into a thing from like a foot that's hanging from the ceiling, and seeing Anya like wake up and seeing what's happening, and like the lady's like, no, don't leave, and you see Anya like rushing over the dead body she was on top of. Yeah, that was hard to watch.
It was pretty gnarly.
That was disgusting, and I feel throwing up just talking about it. Yeah, but then also another really visceral thing when Praetorian Jack is killed, I was shocked by how he didn't have a moment. Yeah, which was so fascinating that they didn't give him a moment. Yeah, made it so much sadder. In a way.
In a way, it made it a moment.
And I think what was hard about it is when I don't want him to die, and they chain him to a motorcycle. And I think the way that he died is just like it's such a simple form of execution, torture that is so devastating and sad. And when they started pulling him on the chain, and he's walking and stuff, I was like, this is just some weird torture thing. They're not going to do anything to him. And then like the scene just keeps going and going and going and going. And it's like, oh no, they killed, like the dogs got him and he's dead. Yeah. And they dragged him through rocks. Like he's dead. Yeah. And it's like, I hope they don't show us. Yeah. What he looks like, because I don't think I can handle that. Yeah. So there was just like, but it made me feel, I feel like more sorrowful, these moments. Because we're seeing, it's a future landscape, post-apocalyptic landscape. So you're just seeing the human depravity of it all. Yeah. It's different than like Saw to me. I don't know why.
Oh, no, it's totally different. And you as you're describing it, it's like you need it so that you can have relief at the end of the movie with her and Dementis. You need it to be like this, because otherwise you're going to be like, well, her real bad guy's Immortan Joe. Sure. Because we've seen Fury Road. Yeah. You need it to feel like, no, Dementis was way worse than Immortan Joe. Immortan Joe is a relief. Yeah. And I think they absolutely accomplished that. As we're talking about it, I feel like this movie's really good. It's making me go up even more. Mm-hmm. I really want to see it again now that we're talking about it again, because now that I can just accept my complaint, with the movie. So let's talk about Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga.
Okay. So the movie begins.
Yes, you want to tell me about it, or do you need me to take
Does
the
it
lead
start
here?
with two girls in
Yep.
in Paris? Was seemingly
In the green place.
No, there was a. We got some title cards.
The classic Mad Max, where it's like the world has ended,
And then some voiceover like radio programs throughout the world explaining how the world is descending into chaos.
Yeah, there was a 911 call.
Yeah.
And there was a moment where I was like, is this movie going to start like in our world? Like,
that would be crazy.
Because Mad Max 1, it is post-apocalyptic, but it's kind of not.
But not.
Like, the oil wars haven't happened in Mad Max 1.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, is this going to take place like in that time period?
And remind me about Mad Max. Was part of that decision made for budget reasons?
I think
Our
so.
setting was just like, it can't show a ton of civilization because of budget problems.
Well, if I remember right, there's like a little bit of references to it, but I think it was more like, hey, we're going to make this movie. And they just had the idea for this story, and then it's like, it does so well that they're like, let's make another one. And then George Miller's like, what if there's been an oil war?
Since that one.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I think this movie is, it's like quite a few years before the last movie, but I think it does say like 45 years after the collapse or something like that. Like in the trailers, I think it said 45 years after the collapse.
But what I'm interested in is, it felt like Dementis has a memory, like was alive.
Yeah,
right at the beginning of all of this fall. Like he had a family, but he could have had a family during all of this chaos.
Yeah,
and lost them through it. But it almost felt like he could remember a time where this world wasn't like this.
Yeah.
But I just might be feeling that, but it's not actually true.
Right. Yeah, no, it's wild. It's a pretty cool world.
Yeah.
I will say too, I thought we had a great theater experience.
Oh, it was great.
People were really into the movie.
Yeah.
A lot of laughing, which felt like it was like, oh, that's not funny to me, but these people are into it laughing, you know? And they're just finding something odd and laughing about it that I don't find funny, but I'm realizing I think I don't laugh as much at the theaters as some people. Anyway. So we're introduced to the Green Place, which is like something we've never seen in a Mad Max movie before.
No, we heard about it in Fury Road, of course,
Yeah.
and then found out that it's gone.
Yeah.
And then we see it here, and it is like a sliver of green. So it is like, I can't help but wonder, like, I mean, you can only assume. Well, now I'm wondering, but like, how much longer will this place survive? Which, as we find out in Fury Road,
not very long.
Not very long. And I'm wondering if it's because of the climate.
Yeah.
How much of it was the climate, and how much of it was other humans discovering it and pillaging it?
Yeah.
That's what I'm interested in.
All right, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I do want to say before we get too far down the track, this is what I love about the movie. It starts with there's this man called the History Man who was way cool.
Yeah, I like that.
And he starts the movie and he says something to the effect of, how do you live in a world that is dying?
Yeah.
How do you find hope or something like that? And I was like, okay, there's your thesis for the movie. Like right off the bat, we're into it, and it felt very prescient. Like George Miller is speaking to our times, because whether you like it or not, our Earth is dying. And whether you believe it, science or not, it is. It just is. And so to like see, like, that's what he's saying about this movie, and then what he'll say at the end of the movie, I was like, that's the like emotional core to this movie that really spoke to me and made me like, dang, that's pretty sweet. Because he really had a message he was trying to get across in this movie in a very clever way, I thought. So I just wanted to point that out because that bookends with the end of the movie so nicely. And right when that happened in the theater, I was like, okay, like take note, you know. And then we get introduced to the...
I forgot that it started with narration like that, which makes the end of it a little bit better to me.
Because it's the History Man at the end narrating, I think, again.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not that I had an issue with the end being narrated. I do kind of like it, but I don't know. We'll get there.
Yeah.
But so there are two children foraging for, looks like, peaches in the Green Place. But it almost feels like they're not supposed to be out here, this far away from their parents or whatever. And one of them's Furiosa. Forget the name of the other one, but her sister, I assume.
Yeah.
And they find their scavengers that have discovered the area, and it looks like they're hacking up a horse.
Yeah.
And even that.
Oh yeah, I couldn't tell what they were doing, and I was like, "What
it.
is this?"
It was like freaking me out.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's just like from a child's perspective too. Seeing it is scary. But Furiosa tells her sister to stay. She goes down there to their motorcycles and
like clips their fuel lines.
Clips their fuel line, but then she gets caught and they kidnap her.
Yeah.
And she's blowing her whistle. People, hear it, gonna run after her. The sister's like, they took Furiosa. Two ladies are starting to go after her. Ends up being her mom that continues the journey.
Yeah. Well, and so I thought this was very interesting because you have this world of disheveled, like reused cars, and it's very like mechanical and metal.
I love this stuff. I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. But in the green place, did you notice they had like solar panels? And
I did not notice solar panels, but I noticed other stuff.
They had a whole row of solar panels.
Yeah, it seemed like they were still using power.
Yeah, and it seemed like
maybe I did notice it actually.
Like levers and stuff.
Yes.
It was more like wooden.
Yes.
And I mean, there was definitely metal, but
Yeah.
I feel like I remember like a wooden thing that someone was winding up and stuff. And so it felt a little more like connected to nature and less machine based.
Yes.
Even though solar panels, of course, are machines, but they're like.
But it's these people know how to. It seems like they know how to live in harmony with the earth.
Yeah.
To survive on it.
Yeah.
Because I imagine, I think you can easily assume that they cultivate the land and they tend to it. When everyone else living in the wasteland, it's just surviving.
Use the the source and then move on.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
Yeah, I love. So here's a thing that I didn't love about the movie.
Okay.
Was I think we spent way too much time on Furiosa at this age.
I totally agree.
Like it got to a point semi early on. Actually, after the mom was tortured.
Yeah.
After that, I was like, okay, now we get to Anya.
Yeah.
And we still didn't get to her for like 15 minutes at least.
I think it was long. So I looked at my watch.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly when the movie started. I know the showtime, but there was, trailers and stuff. I know my watch was well past an hour from what I estimated. I don't think we get Anya till like an hour 10.
Yeah,
into this movie. I think that's a mistake.
I think that's a mistake too. Story-wise, I think it was all fascinating.
Yeah.
It was all interesting, but
and the girl was good. The girl was great.
That's no issues with that stuff at all.
Yeah.
And again, I do like the story, and I think part of it is just curbing expectations for myself.
Yeah.
But everyone just wants to see Anya.
That was the thing. Where
you have to right. You have to give us that.
It's like, of course, I want to see anything George Miller. I want to see anything Mad Max. I love Mad Max. But it's like when I see Anya Taylor-Joy is cast in this movie, I'm like, hell yeah. And so when it takes an hour and 10 minutes till I can see her, I'm like, I want to see Anya. I want to see her like as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Like get to her.
But I do understand story-wise needing to establish Dementis.
Yeah.
I get that. But you could have done that with Anya.
Yeah.
Like,
but then again, it's like at least for me, I'll just speak for me, the emotional climax and the ending of the movie really worked. Even though I was having a little trouble engaging with the movie, the ending, I was like, holy cow, this really works.
Yeah.
And so maybe like you had to have that innocent child witness that stuff instead of an adult woman.
What I liked about it a lot was she was this innocent child, but she knew how to fight for herself.
Oh yeah.
She
escaped
was
twice.
Not helpless even a little bit.
Yeah.
She was trained.
Yeah.
Almost like for this potentiality of this happening.
Well, you almost like, I like that there's, like the mom is chasing them and shoots and stuff, but it's almost like kidnap, cut to Dementis, and cut out like 5 minutes right there.
Although
and
I really liked the scene.
I know, that's the problem.
But there
was just something, there was like 15 to 20 to 30 minutes that I just needed to get to Anya.
Yeah. I know.
It took so long.
I agree. So the mom chases them for a while.
Yeah.
And almost gets her back. Furiosa almost gets away. Then they get her back again. And they get taken to Dementis's, wherever his
His camp.
tiny little camp is, kingdom.
Yeah.
And
well, if there's a kingdom, there's usually a planet full of apes.
Yeah,
so
there
it's
were
not
no
really a
apes in
kingdom.
this.
Yeah, it's like a village.
Very good point. So she is taken to these people. So when the guy comes with her, he's like, I found this place of abundance.
Yeah.
And stuff. And I want to talk to Dementis about it. I found it.
Yeah.
And then Furiosa does a thing that kills him.
Yeah.
That was nuts and gnarly. So then that other guy takes her to Dementis.
She doesn't kill him, remember?
No, I know.
Okay.
But the one-eyed guy takes her to Dementis and is claiming responsibility for this thing.
Yeah.
There's this place of abundance. And we meet Dementis. I do find it interesting that he is like much cleaner than everyone else.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good detail. And then they do bring in that other guy that Furiosa just like almost killed. And it was hard to watch.
Yeah.
Again, this movie was kind of hard to watch.
His throat was like slashed open.
Oh, it was disgusting.
Yeah. But all of them, I mean, I agree with you.
I know all of them.
Yeah.
And I think I just because we just watched Fury Road and it's as disgusting as they come.
Yeah.
So it's just these are what these movies are.
There's something about these movies where in my memory, they're PG-13 family-friendly blockbusters for some reason.
So not, man.
And they're absolutely not those movies.
Yeah.
They are hard R.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because the only one that is family-friendly is Beyond Thunderdome. And I think even that, like, the first hour is pretty weird.
Yeah, and, like, freaky.
Yeah, but, like, all the other ones have, like, a lot of pretty graphic stuff in them. And you just, I don't know, it's just, like, the movies are so fun to watch, I forget that there's graphic stuff in them.
Yes.
Beyond just, like, a car crash. It's like, oh, no, the guy's eyes pop out of his head in the first movie,
Yeah.
Like, they don't pop out of his head, but there is that shot that's like, whoa, that's insane.
Yes. Oh, it's so weird. But so Furiosa, Dementis is like, you're gonna be safe. Go take her, clean her up.
Yeah.
Keep her safe. Keep her in the best area. And whenever you're ready to talk, we'll talk. He's being very sweet.
Now let's just say this: Chris Hemsworth. This is probably the best role I've seen him in.
It is fantastic, and I just keep thinking about how this is such a smart pick for him.
It's so smart.
He's been in a lot of crap.
He's had trouble
since Thor 1, like he's tried a lot of different avenues to honestly be A-list, A-tier, butts and seats man.
And he's not.
And he is not. He's been in a lot of bad Netflix movies. And this is like, finally, dude, you made a great choice. This is like Chris Evans in Knives Out. You know what I mean?
That's a perfect analogy.
Perfect choice for Chris Evans.
Yeah.
And I think, and he's been in a lot of bad stuff too, even since Knives Out. But these are like great hallmarks in your career, touchstones.
Yeah. I do feel like he sort of gets, I think, and I'll be interested to see where he goes post Furiosa. But I kind of feel like Hemsworth sort of understands that he's a huge movie star, but he is not Tom Cruise, and he needs to not be like the lead in the movie.
You think so?
Because like I think about Bad Times at the El Royale.
Oh yeah, he's great in that.
He's excellent in that movie, and he is not the lead of that movie. And then I think about a Netflix movie that was panned, but I enjoyed, although I did watch it at work on my phone.
The spider whatever thing.
Spiderhead. And he's also kind of weird in that movie and not the lead. And so I think
Is he the antagonist?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think he kind of understands that about himself. And I think I would think that post Furiosa he will weaponize that even further and not do movies like Mission Impossible or Men in Black.
So here are some things that he's been in since being in Thor 1.
Okay, love it.
He's in Cabin in the Woods the same year as Thor.
Yeah.
That's a obviously I'm sure like filmed before Thor or whatever.
Or during, but doesn't count
during,
in this regard.
2012 he's in Snow White and the Huntsman.
Not good.
No, he's in Red Dawn.
Also not good. I haven't seen
Rush,
these, but
2013.
I think that would be considered a good choice.
Well, he's working with a well-known director. Yeah. I effing hate that movie. So for me, bad.
Uh-huh.
Black Hat. What's Black Hat?
Black Hat is a Michael Mann movie.
Okay.
Panned when it came out by critics and audiences, but there's since people that quite defend it, and I've been wanting to watch it.
So working with another crazy director, though.
How can you say no to Michael Mann?
He's in he's in Vacation for some reason.
Weaponizing his charm and funniness, I'm sure.
In the Heart of the Sea. I remember this movie. This was like a Moby Dick movie.
Ron Howard.
Oh, another Ron
big
Howard
flop,
movie.
Big flop. Yeah, not a good choice.
So then he was in a Huntsman sequel.
Yeah, no good.
Oh no, he's like, this is about the Huntsman. That can only be like one of the worst movies ever made. Listen to this cast though.
Okay.
Chris Hemsworth, Jessica Chastain, Charlize Theron, which I think she's in the first one.
Yeah.
Emily Blunt.
Whoa.
Nick Frost.
Whoa.
Rob Brydon from The Trip.
Oh, okay. Whoa. Okay.
Weird.
Yeah. I'm learning that Charlize Theron will do anything.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
You're like, hey, I got a script over here. Come here, and you can throw it into the backyard. She'll be like, all right, I'll be in it.
I'm sure unwatchable. Apparently, he's in Ghostbusters.
I think cameo level, but
sure.
Yeah, Afterlife.
Okay, so now we're to Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah. Rebrand. Even Thor gets a resurgence.
And so the year after that, he's in 12 Strong, which is that's some tactical movie.
I think is that the Michael Bay John Krasinski movie?
No, they're not producers, but Michael Shannon's in it and Michael Pena.
I don't know what that is.
Well, it's got really bad scores.
Okay.
Very just middling.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me see.
Because I see, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, this is for dads and dads only. 12 Strong tells the story of first Special Forces team deployed to Afghanistan after 9/11.
Oh, yeah. So, okay, but before you continue, I want to keep going down this rabbit hole. But as you're talking and discussing his career, I think I'm realizing, and you can even think about it in the Thor movies themselves, is he needs some sort of something beyond just like stoic man.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for anyone to pull off just stoic man, but like everybody loves him post Ragnarok as Thor, and in that he's like witty and jokey, and from then on he's witty and jokey in the movies. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's kind of witty in the other ones, but it's just not as well written.
I gotta tell you, hearing that he's in some Afghanistan movie, I don't believe that for a second.
Yeah,
that someone like him would, like someone that looks like no, that's bad casting.
Well, and I'm just thinking like, Extraction, this movie, it's like I'm sure he's just like big, strong, tough guy.
Yes,
and it's like that's Wahlberg's lane. Like you have something in your eyes,
dude. You're more talented. Like
yeah, you
do something like in 2018 he's also in Bad Time.
Yeah.
At the El Royale, and it's like you're hitting on something there. But then in 2019, he's in Men in Black International, which I understand that's like in a way a logical choice.
It is logical, but
I'm just now realizing that Tessa Thompson and him are in Thor together. How come I never put that together?
I don't think I ever did either because I just didn't want to see it.
In a way,
bad.
I feel like that's bad casting.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Other than you just think.
They're hot at the moment, is what you're thinking.
I guess, and it's like people really liked him in Ragnarok. Let's see if they can do some. I don't like that.
Yeah.
But I understand logically that choice.
Yeah.
And they're I'm sure hoping it'll be a great reboot for this franchise that people just want to remember from the early 2000s.
Yeah. It's a classic. It's like Ghostbusters. It's like how the Beverly Hills Cop movie is going to be. Everyone's going to watch them and be like, okay, now I just want to watch like the original because that's the one I like.
And then he's in Extraction in 2020. Then he's in some TV shows like True Story, Interceptor, which just seem like cop stuff or like soldier stuff. And it's like, that's just you're better than that. Is how I feel.
He needs that. Like Bad Times at the El Royale, in this movie, he's literally a cult leader in both movies. He needs that kind of like, it doesn't have to be a secret, but he needs that like he's deceiving people,
Yeah. Yeah. So then he's in Spiderhead in 2022, Extraction 2, and then we're at this movie.
Yeah. So
fascinating.
It's actually not like the worst career when you lay it out like that.
No, I just think that I hope. Hearing that he, we're being reminded that he is in some weird roles.
Yeah.
And then he's to this movie. This almost feels like it was all leading to him. Like, if he can handle this movie, let's see where he goes from here.
My hope is this is like, oh yeah, from Furiosa on, he did this,
Yes.
and this, and he became someone that we all wanted to see. you
But I
know?
do feel like because of the age of streaming, characters, actors like him are stuck and cannot resist Amazon deals
Yeah, or Netflix
for
deals or whatever.
or Netflix deals for shows and movies like Extraction.
Yeah.
Because it's like Chris Pratt's in that other show that's on Amazon that I've heard of. That's like only dads watch this. This show's,
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure, awful. And it's just, he's probably some assassin or undercover agent or something.
Right.
And it's like 20 people watched this.
Yeah.
But he probably got a truckload of money.
Right.
And he's able to do Garfield because of it.
Yeah. But so speaking to Dementis, I loved him in this movie. And I loved Dementis in this movie. But I will say I felt a little bit, as we talked about as we left the theater with Kateri and Evan, and my dad was there as well. Hello, Dad. Thanks for listening. I did feel, and I kind of agree, we have like some wild looking people in this movie. And
What do you mean by wild? Like makeup wise or beautiful?
No, like makeup and like grody and crazy looking. And it's interesting that they gave Hemsworth a nose, and that's it. Like, I do kind of feel like they could have done something crazier.
And that I don't think we mentioned this yet on Mike, but because of that, you and I were like, well, I don't know if you were, but I know I was like, is he supposed to be like that bullet farmer guy from Fury Road?
Right.
And then
we thought that
then
while
they
watching Fury Road.
They released a trailer. No, I thought about that before that.
Oh, you did?
Because then they released a second trailer for this movie. And it showed him, and then it showed Bullet Farmer, and we were like,
from the first
movie,
Fury
we were
Road.
Like, oh, I guess it is him. And then we watched Fury Road, and we're like, okay, let's really pay attention to Furiosa and this Bullet Farmer. But then like there was so nothing between them.
Yeah.
So they had no baggage. So it was like, okay, so he's definitely not that guy.
Yeah.
Then why does he look like him?
Right.
As if like a younger version of him or something. I don't know.
But then watching the movie, it didn't feel that way.
Oh,
but like,
absolutely not.
I feel like the trailers kind of made it feel like it was that.
Yeah. We're probably the only people that felt that.
Well, you thought the Bullet Farmer was CG, so
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, although on the other hand, to give the movie credit, there is like a common trope in movies where like if someone has a disfigurement, they're always the bad guy.
Yeah.
And he does not.
Yeah.
So maybe they thought of that. They were like, let's have like one of the better looking people. And maybe that's part of his character is like he's not been exposed to as much radiation and stuff as everyone else. And that's why he looks
Maybe they were just like,
normal.
he's too beautiful to, I know your dad would agree with this. He's too beautiful to be in this world and look this good. If we want him to be a little bit cleaner because he's the one in charge,
Yeah.
that he wouldn't be a little ugly.
Yeah.
Maybe people just wouldn't believe it.
Maybe not. Maybe he just wanted to wear a nose.
Yeah, it could have been him.
Yeah. But yeah, so she gets with Dementis.
Yeah, let's get back to talking about the plot of the movie.
Yeah, and then they eventually capture the mother.
Yeah. And her mother is telling her, go home. Or go to this place. If I'm not there in a day, go home.
Yeah.
And Furiosa doesn't even do that for a second.
Yeah.
Mother gets captured, runs back to her mother. How do you feel when characters do that in movies? I think when I was like a kid and stuff like that happened, I would be like, you should have gone home.
Yeah.
If you had just listened to your mom, you wouldn't have been captured again.
I think when it comes to children, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But sometimes with it depends on the scenario.
Yeah.
I feel like this movie earns that she would just run back.
Mhm.
And I think because she doesn't even hesitate, she just goes right back.
Yeah, I don't
like,
have a problem with
yeah.
it. I was just curious. It
Yeah.
just kind of made me think of when I was a kid, how I would feel about it.
Right.
But yeah, so she comes back seeing that her mom's being tortured. And as we mentioned, we don't exactly understand what they're doing to her. And that's the freakiest part about this
Yeah,
thing.
it bothered me for sure.
Yeah.
And
Dementis making
makes
her
watch.
look. And
Yeah.
especially, like we already said, Dementis making her watch, but we can't see what's happening. So knowing that
Yeah.
a child is watching this, but we can't even see it, it's weird.
Yeah.
And it makes him more evil feeling.
Yeah. So then is this when they go to attack Immortan Joe?
Okay, so yeah, I think they're trying to find the place of abundance.
Yeah.
And she's not speaking to them.
Yeah.
at all. She's basically gone mute to them.
Yeah.
And
She hides a peach pit in her hair because she promised her mom that she would plant it.
Her mom told her to take it back.
Yeah.
And don't let them have this. So yeah, she has the peach pit. But they're just trying to find this place of abundance, and then they happen upon what are they called? Those the sons of like a Morton Joe or whatever.
Oh yeah, they happen upon something boy. Not sick boy, that's Train Spotting.
He is sick though. They're all sick. They're
Yeah,
like
what are they
cancer-ridden.
called? I cannot recall what they're
Just talk
called.
about what happens.
But they find him. He has like an arrow in his head, and he's clearly
he's
like
sprayed painted his mouth as these boys do when they're gonna go to Valhalla. So it's like something happened and he's supposed to be dead.
I love that. touch.
Oh my gosh, I loved it.
And I feel like he's just telling them all the information because he has something stuck in his brain and he can't think properly. So
I didn't think of it that way. Is that what's happening?
That's what I thought, where they're like, hey, where do you go? And he's like, oh yeah, Morton Joe's over there. It's a citadel. It has all the food in the world that you want. I think it's because he has an arrow in his head and he can't he has no inhibition to stop talking.
I kind of took it as he thought he was dead too.
Well, yeah, and I love that touch too, where he's like, is this Valhalla? And one of them says, what is Valhalla? And that's when the history man says, well, it's a place for,
war boys.
Yeah, war boys, yeah. It's a place for war boys. So then Dementus takes his army to what is now dubbed as Fortress 1. The freaking whatever it's called.
The Citadel. Yeah.
Also, this movie had title sequences so it was like 1, the Pole of Inaccessibility.
Oh,
and then
yeah,
2, the Stowaway or something like that.
My criticism on that is because it took so long to get to Anya, it was like another one. Oh, another? When are we getting to her?
Yeah. But that was a moment where I was like, oh, George is not repeating himself. He has something else to say. He's not just doing not that I don't, these movies are not easy to make, clearly. So, there's that. But it is man, I feel like he could have taken an easier route if he wanted to.
Oh my gosh. He could have shot this on a green screen.
I think there was a lot of green screen involved. But
I know, but that they do shoot a lot of it on location as well.
Yeah.
But I guess you're right about that. But yeah, so they go to the Citadel, and Dementus, being Dementus, is like, okay, we're here to take over. He's talking to the people. We're here to deliver you from whoever your leader is, and we will give you, people are saying we're given water at certain time, they hold the water hostage, and it's we will give it however you want, whenever you want. Yeah. And that's the first time we see people coming out of holes. I feel like we kind of saw that in Fury Road.
I don't remember them coming out of holes. I just remember them being out.
What's interesting about this movie is that they I feel like we're seeing the Citadel from a different side.
Yeah.
They come into it from a different perspective than it was shown.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I love that. That was really cool. But so you see all the people coming out and are like, we're gonna deliver you. I found it super interesting, his right-hand man, Dementus's right-hand man, that would mime everything that he was saying.
Oh yeah.
I found that very interesting.
Yeah, that was kind of wild.
But
there's so much in these movies where I'm not been to Australia, not knowing Australian people, it's that just seems like something an Australian would put in a movie.
Okay, sure.
There's so much of that in these where it's just not even just the accents. I just feel these are just deeply Australian movies.
So, Dementus demands to speak to the leader. So all of the people in charge, including a Morton Joe, come out way up there and are looking down. And I love that a Morton Joe does not say a word to him. But other people, the people leader talks to him.
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly what's said, but I remember it being a funny conversation between them. And then it's okay, you pick someone to fight one of our people and we'll pick someone. No, you pick one of ours is what he said. So his right-hand man, Dementus's right-hand man, is looking up at all of these war boys up there, and he points at one of them. And the kid walks over to a platform, gets 2 of those sticks that blow up. Yeah. And says, "Witness me," or he sprays himself. Yeah. And he says, "Witness me." And I was like, "What is he doing? What is he going to do?"
Yeah, I had no idea what was happening.
He gets onto some cables with the things. and is sliding down and then lets go with his sticks and kills him, it blows himself up.
Yeah.
In the name of Valhalla.
Yeah.
And chaos ensues.
But but even before that, they're like, we have hundreds of people who will do that.
Yes.
So like, do you want to fight?
Yes.
And then they do.
Yeah. And then they have no chance, which really shows how great of a fortress the Citadel is.
Yeah.
And they're forced to flee. This is when Furiosa falls out of the cage, but is still chained to it.
Yeah.
And it's being like carried away.
Yeah.
And that's when the people are trying to bring her into the hole. And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
But Dementus gets her out.
She's also tattooing the stars to her so she can find the green place.
Yes.
But
I do like, earlier when the history man is like trying to convince her, like, you should become a history person. Like if you demonstrate value to Dementus, like he won't hurt you.
Yeah.
Or kill you. He'll have no reason to.
Yeah.
Love that. I love that not only is all of his skin tattooed, history is written all over him, but it's like all on his clothes and stuff too.
Yeah, he was cool. He was
he
cool.
was.
I hope that it's History Man.
I heard
Mad
during
Max
the movie
Saga.
when he showed up, your dad turned to you and said Gandalf, and you didn't bat an eye.
I didn't.
You gave your dad such a cold shoulder.
I was like, no, he said that right in the first shot of the movie, and I'm like, he doesn't look anything like Gandalf, and this isn't worth saying. Don't say this. So I was like, I'm not responding to this. So sorry, Dad, but no.
It was funny.
But you heard him, huh?
I did.
I mean, it was pretty loud. Gandalf. And then just silence from me. So then they escape, and then at some point, is that when they go to the bullet farm?
No, they go to the oil city thing first. What is it called?
Gastown.
Gastown.
And which I was like, I felt like a little kid watching Iron Man 2 when he pulled out the Captain America shield. I was like, it's Gastown from the roadway. So they go there, and then they run kind of like a convoy.
I liked all of this.
This
it was very
tactical
interesting
way to get in there. Yeah. It was very cool.
Yeah, so I like when they cut to the guy who runs Gastown and he's painting whatever that painting is. It's like just a hint of potential civility.
Yeah.
Really liked that touch.
Like speaking about the runtime of to get to Anya, I liked the Warboy scene a lot, but it almost makes more sense to they just already know about the Citadel. They go to Gastown, do that, then they go and have that scene and cut out.
I know because when you think about the
minutes.
movie, there's a lot of great stuff in it, so it's hard to think of stuff to cut.
Yeah,
I just almost feel like you could have just had Anya as the little girl, like years have gone by.
But I do wonder emotionally how would it hit as much if. Because she's an adult.
I know we need to see her experience a lot. I do understand that. And I guess I do understand her being sold as a child.
Yeah.
Later on. I get it. It just takes too long, honestly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they con their way into Gastown and
take it over.
Yeah, they take it over.
Yeah.
And
it's a cool sequence.
It's cool. And then they go to the Citadel and they're like, we're going to blow up Gastown by sunset if we're not back. So you better give us control of Gastown. Meanwhile, Dementus has a Saw type, Saw the movie type rig on the guy who runs Gastown's head, that a spike will be driven into his head if he lets go. Freaky.
Yeah. And it's connected to his nipples
and his nose.
Yeah, that I was
didn't understand
confused
that.
by that. I was confused by that.
Yeah.
Because in the scene his nipples get ripped off.
Does that just show how hard he is?
I don't know. I kind of had a hard time understanding it until after it happened, and then I was like, what? He doesn't have nipples anymore? What is happening? That's kind of how I felt in that scene.
I just almost felt like that was just a power play, to show him how crazy he was.
I guess so.
To kill a guy's not enough.
Yeah,
to cause pain to
my,
oneself.
My nipples ripped off. My ripples
It
nipped
was
off.
just a funny touch because then they showed the people eater holding his nipples. It was like, okay. So the guy dies anyway.
Yeah.
And then there is a huge negotiation.
Uh-huh.
To give Dementus control over Gastown, actual control.
Yeah.
And Immortan Joe notices Furiosa, and she's a full life.
Yeah.
She's untouched. Oh, she would make a great wife.
Yeah.
A great mother.
He's a sicko.
Someday he is a sicko. And so he bargains with Dementis, give me the girl and give me Angus, whatever that guy's name is.
The organic mechanic.
Yeah.
That's cool. Band name called it.
Love that. So forgetting that he was in the last movie, I didn't think that I didn't remember that he would need to have be
switch sides.
Yeah. So that was
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then he has Furiosa, and at this point I was kind of like, how does this work? Like, how does she get to a relationship with Immortan Joe where he knows who she is and he's riding her vehicles, and then they thread the needle perfectly?
Yes.
Because he never knows her name. She never gives up her name.
Yeah.
And she sees the wives. She's put into that area.
She's going to be raised as a mother. She will be a mother someday.
Yeah. And the wives give birth to a mutant baby, which was like,
well, that
yikes.
That was crazy. That was like conjoined babies.
Yeah.
Which shows that, I mean, most of the people who live in the Citadel are like ridden with cancer.
Yeah.
And I imagine Immortan Joe is too. Because
have you seen this guy?
His other sons are like
white.
disfigured. Well, that big guy, he's not necessarily disfigured, but his other son, Scrotus, he's not okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was crazy when that lady gave birth and she's like, I'll give you a full life. I promise. I can do it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Weird.
So there's already been some,
which makes it even grosser in Fury Road, which we recently watched it. I completely forgot about the scene where the pregnant lady is given back to Immortan Joe. He captures her back and she's barely hanging on by a thread, and they deliver her baby, and it's a stillborn. Yeah. And Angus is like, oh man, bummer. Would have been a full life. And he's like slapping the baby around.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Weird.
Pretty gnarly.
It made it weirder.
But then, so this was a moment where I was like, where are we going?
I know.
But
they did it well.
Yeah. But it's like already the movie's like sent me a lot of questions of like, ooh, yikes.
Yes.
And then the big brother, I forget his name.
Yeah.
He comes in and like grabs Furiosa with bad intentions.
He's like touching her hair.
Yeah. But she has shaved her hair.
Not yet. Rictus erectus.
Rictus erectus.
Oh, no. I'm saying in the scene when the lady is giving birth.
Oh, yeah.
He touches her hair and she runs away from him. And then later that night, she cuts off all of her hair, but creates a wig out of it.
Yeah. And
then on another night, he comes to her and takes her away to like wherever he lives, his bedroom. And they don't even hint at what he's going to do.
Well, we know what he's going to do.
We know. And I'm just glad that they don't even like get close to it.
Yeah,
visually.
Me too. Yeah. Oh yeah. I was like, I don't want to see this. Please no.
He touches her hair again, and she runs away because it's not attached to her head.
Yeah,
runs after her.
It's a great detail because it's a classic like Breaking Bad / Better Call Saul thing where I was like, what are these characters doing? Like when she was cutting her hair, I'm like, what's the purpose of this? And then you see it, and you're like, oh, nice.
Oh, well, I kind of figured what would happen.
Oh, I didn't.
But she hides.
Yep.
And from there on is no longer. She essentially goes missing as a mother.
Yeah.
And reintegrates herself as a boy.
Yeah.
Into not as a war boy, but as a mechanic, I guess.
Yeah. And so this made me feel like, oh, this is like Shakespearean. Because that just feels like a Shakespearean twist where it's like a character is going to pretend to be, a stowaway, something else.
I think absolutely here you could have gone to Anya.
Well, isn't this where it does go to Anya?
No, not yet, because there is a scene where there's like a car hanging from a chain that needs to be rechained, and like they need to get someone else, and they're like, "You boy, go!"
Yeah,
and it's her as a child still.
Yeah,
but you can tell that she's been doing this. It's like the next scene.
Oh yeah.
But it's like this is what she's doing now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you could have gone to Anya. Is she waking up?
She just rolled over.
Oh okay. Yeah, absolutely. So then we finally get to Anya. And she's like working on the car. We see him making the crazy war rig. And then they're going to, can we just skip to, they're headed to Gastown to get filled up?
Okay.
And you have this like insane sequence.
Okay.
So you have this insane sequence.
So then her job is to be underneath the rig.
Yeah.
in case of anyone
Where there's
trying...
like a spare motorcycle. That's cool.
Okay, but hold on. Quick question that I was confused about. This is why I thought that she was trying to escape.
Yeah.
The scene before that,
Yeah.
she's alone, and she's putting food up there.
Oh, yeah.
As if that's a little storage compartment for her.
Oh, right.
And then someone catches her, and he's like, what are you doing? She rattles around a jar of pee.
Yeah.
And he's like, come on, you're a guy. Just pee.
Piss.
And I thought something more would happen with that, where they would discover she's a girl later, but I guess no one cared.
Yeah.
But so that's why I thought that she was stowing away stuff to run away.
Yeah. I mean, maybe she was. Yeah, she does have the bike. It just seems like no characters were like, what are you doing here? Or
I
whatever.
know. I know.
And like when the other mechanic is like, he can see her when he's moving around under there, and she's not like, oh, I hope nobody sees me. So I think she is just like a spare person, and she's just ready to go if she needs to, or if she gets the opportunity.
Let Micah know if it was more clear to you.
Yeah, maybe.
Don't text me.
Actually, don't let me know. I'll watch it. By then, I'll have seen the movie again, and I'll know.
I do have a question about how some of this works, but in a little bit. But yeah, this seems crazy.
Yeah, there's a cool and it's...
So wait. What's happening though is it's not Dementis's people. It's that other dude with the horn that I can't remember his name. His people have gone rogue.
Yeah.
And they've kind of gone rogue against... this guy turns on Dementis because when Dementis was originally taking over Gastown and they were staging that fight, and the Gastown leader was like, it's staged, don't open the gate or anything. And the Dementis is like, we got to make this real. So he starts killing his own people.
Yeah.
And that's when that guy's like, I see you.
Yeah.
You're a traitor. So that guy has since gone rogue. That's what this fight is.
Yeah. So you said you had questions about it
Okay,
or something?
so first of all, do you remember there's that little kid that is inside the tank?
Yeah.
With all the food. And what is the thing that he said? It was like a word, like, is it time for this? And then early
like
on,
the Big Bang or something like that.
And someone was like, no, not ready. And then at the end of this thing, by this time, people are flying around with like wind fans.
Yeah,
and stuff.
that's cool.
It's so cool.
And they use like skis to like get into them.
Something like that.
And it started practical. That first time that someone did it, it was like absolutely practical. And I was like, what?
Yes. But then the kid pops up again and she screams at him like the word, like, it's go time, whatever it is. And the kid's like, really? And it's like, yes. And the kid gets back
shot.
Down. Oh, so he gets shot? Does he get hit by like shrapnel?
I think he just gets like shot by a bullet.
Okay, because I was confused how he died.
I think it's just like random, like he just died.
Got caught in the crossfire or something?
Yeah.
Okay. I just couldn't tell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was that your question?
Yep.
Okay. And so, yeah, it's a big sequence. I mean, do we sit here and explain it? No. You just have to see it.
Yeah.
And so basically, like, they've lost all these people. Then Furiosa and Praetorian Jack are the only two people left. And she's like, I'm out of here. Let's just go. And he's like, no. And
he lets her go.
Yeah, he
just
lets
throws
her go.
her out.
Yeah. And then
the movie's like, it almost felt like that was the first time there was no noise. The sound, like there was no sound design. You know what I mean? It was, and it was almost, it felt like as if she had never heard this. She hasn't heard this silence since she was a child.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he comes over the ridge and he's like, I can help you, basically.
I can train you in my ways.
Yeah.
And then, you'll be set.
So
I'm glad that they did not spend a ton of the movie on that.
Yeah,
she pretty much was just then trained.
Love that. And I like that they clearly have like a romance.
I was getting nervous about that, by the way.
But it's just like it's very implied.
So heavily implied. So yeah, when the guy was first introduced, and he's getting into his rig, and everyone's like, "That's Praetorian Jack," and Furiosa looks at him, and they like lock eyes. I was like, was that like a love connection, or was it just something's going to happen later?
Yeah.
And then I just started getting worried. It's just like, I don't want to see a love story, personally. I don't want this movie to be a love story.
Yeah, because you're not a romantic.
Well, I just don't want this movie that's about this female lead to end up being a love story.
Yeah.
Can't she just be cool and want to go back home?
Yeah.
So I was just starting to get a little worried about that, and it did not go there at all. And what they did, I thought I loved. I thought it was great. So
yeah,
it was good. But yeah, so like she kind of, he teaches her in his ways and she teaches him in her ways, essentially, like telling him about the green place and I got to get back there. And he's like, I'll go with you and I'll help you get there. And
Right.
we'll be so happy without really saying those words.
Yeah. And then I don't remember what happens after this.
After that.
Because there's just a lot of
this is probably when
business.
Dementis is starting to try and take over, try and do a coup.
Yeah.
More or less. Is this when we go to the bullet farm, pretty much?
I think we can get there.
Oh, wait. So I think that time when they get into Gastown.
Uh-huh.
Well, no, this is a different time. So she's been trained in his ways.
Uh-huh.
And she's going to take over soon or whatever, her own rig. And then they go into Gastown and it's like chaos.
Yeah, they're all turning
and
on
people are like,
Dementis.
Get out of here now. Because
and Dementis says,
has lost control.
Have your leaders meet me at this place at 12 o'clock in 3 days or something like that.
Yeah.
And so then they report that.
It's interesting. So what do you think happened? Do you think that he was not a good enough leader to establish control, or he forced this chaos to weaken Immortan Joe's kingdom?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because you don't see what's been happening, and I was just curious.
I know there's an element that feels staged, like he did this to get them out of there, not give them resources, and set them up.
Yeah.
I mean, he does seem like he's playing chess, and he's ahead of the game.
We've not mentioned that he is a chariot. We did mention he's a chariot of motorcycles. Yeah, you're right.
I think right now I'm kind of believing that he either riled them up, or he purposely was like, all right, guys, we got to stage this when they.
I don't think it's staged, but I would believe a world where he, let this happen.
Yeah,
and it's all going to work in his favor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then eventually, then they're going to go to the bullet farm, and I think their plan is Furiosa and Praetorian Jack that they will run away after this, or in whatever happens here. They get the war boys to do you're going to drive the war rig. You guys go over here, load up these bikes on this car, and that's going to be their getaway car.
Yeah.
So then they get into the bullet farm and immediately discover.
They get ambushed.
They get ambushed, that the chaos has touched this area.
Yeah.
Loved this scene.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, this one was one of the rougher CG scenes.
I agree with that. But in terms of story and stuff that's happening, I liked it.
And I've already said, I put it away. I feel like, again, when I watch it a second time, I'm just not going to care about that stuff. You
might. I bet you kind of was so old, though, because it's hard to not feel that way after having Fury Road,
Right. But it's a wild scene. A lot of cool stuff. She's trying to snipe out Dementis at one point, but isn't able to do it. And she has to save Praetorian Jack.
That's another interesting thing where you can't yawn while you talk, Micah. But it goes back to her being a child and not leaving her mother.
Yeah.
And she will not leave Praetorian Jack.
Yeah.
She saves him. And they are driving away, and they think they have 2 minutes of we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're going to do it.
And then they're being chased.
And then they're being chased by Dementis, who eventually, he chases them in a monster truck, by the way.
Cool.
Catches up to them. This is when her arm gets hurt. And I was reminded, she's supposed to be missing half an arm.
Was it the same arm that she was tattooing, or was it the other arm? I can't recall.
Now I don't remember.
Okay. I think it was the tattoo arm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Praetorian Jack also gets shot.
Yeah.
In the shoulder.
And they get captured. After a pretty wild flip.
Yes. So he, as if she was a child again. Does he remember it's her?
No.
Okay.
No.
So he makes her witness Praetorian Jack being tortured and killed.
Yeah.
And this is what we'd already mentioned.
Yep, where he's being dragged.
Yeah.
By the motorcycles.
Yeah. It's just very barbaric.
Yeah. And
so then she escapes by wrangling her arm off of herself. Yeah. I like that we don't see how she does it.
Oh, you just come by and the arm's just dangling.
Ooh, love it.
I do love, though, it just shows how demented Dementis is. When he's the guy's stringing her up and he's like, did you forget how to torture? And then he grabs her other arm that's all messed up.
Oh, I'd missed that. That's interesting.
Yeah, because it's like the other guy was going to do her good arm
Yeah.
to hold her up on. And funny enough, she would have been stuck there if he did. And he's like, come on, like, are you weak now? Like, let's go. Let's do this the right way. And the guy looks at him like, that's not, like,
so
that's too much.
What do you think about this? So during the scene, we don't see Furiosa witnessing it.
Yeah.
We see Dementis.
Yeah.
Basically witnessing it. But he's not watching it. He's just sitting on the hood of the car, just waiting for it to be over.
Yeah.
And he looks almost bored.
Uh-huh.
But do you think he looks tired of it as well? It's just like, I just do this because I'm Dementis and I have to do this.
I don't know. I hadn't thought of it. It was just like there's a lot going on, and I just liked what was happening.
Great answer.
I know. It's not a very academic answer, that's for sure. But yeah,
I feel like on a second watch, I will think of it more during that scene.
Yeah, sorry. I wish I had a better one for you.
I haven't thought about that until now.
Yeah.
But she gets away. She makes it all the way back to the Citadel, but we get the scene of the really gross cannibal stuff.
Right.
She makes it out of there. She goes up to Morton Joe and tells him everything that's happening. A war is going to happen. Uh-huh. And they believe her. Yeah. And they're going to spring into action. Yeah. They're going to make Dementis think that they're all going to Gastown because Dementis wants them to go there. Yeah. So that the Citadel will be empty. He can go there, establish residence, and he wins. Yeah. And she says, if you find him, he's mine. Right. And then, more or less, we get, it's a montage scene. She is creating her mechanical arm. Yeah. I was a little confused by time.
Well, I was like, she's doing this in like an hour?
That's what I was wondering.
Then you find out they mentioned that it's a 45-day war.
Well, I think it was a 40-day war.
I thought
it was a 40-day because it felt biblical. Like 40 days.
Yeah.
Whatever. But yeah, so then we get some voiceover again explaining.
When this was kind of like when the voiceover hit and we're just seeing montage, I'm like, oh, interesting. Yeah. But then it kind of felt like this is tying back into these themes that he's trying to weave in this movie.
What, you think humans repeating themselves?
Yeah, and it's like the world is ending, it's ended, and there's another war. Like, let's not even bother to look at it. It almost seems like that's not what's important in war. Like, the wars are not important. It's the people that are important. Oh,
interesting.
And so it took a second because it's like, oh, I wanted to see that. But then it's like, no, that's the right call.
No, because the movie's not about that.
Yeah.
That's, his next movie is going to be about the 40-day war.
Yeah.
Please, I don't really want that. But he'd make it good.
Yeah.
But
it was cool when she was going through the wreckage, though. She has like a salvaged car. Mm-hmm. And it's just cool because it's like, oh, yeah, it looks like any other war scene except for it's all just like beaten down cars. Yeah. So that was really interesting. That was just such a... That felt like this just feels so Australian to me. Okay. Like an American's not making this scene. That's how it felt to me.
Interesting.
I don't know. I don't have anything to like back that up, but that's how it felt.
Yeah.
And then she gets out there. She gets a real car, and she chases down Dementis.
I like that. So she gets that beat up car, and the people are like, oh, that tire, take that tire off. We need that tire for our car, blah, 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 blah. And then they're arguing about who's going to go in the car.
She just drives away.
And she just drives away in it. Yeah, love it.
And then,
so Dementis
she catches him.
and two other of his people are riding away, and they know that she's. Oh, I like this. It was kind of a recreation of the beginning of the movie. Yeah, where they hear someone's after them. Dementis runs up that hill in the sand, gets down, looks through a telescope or binoculars, sees that someone's coming after them, and his plan is, we're all three going to separate. I like that he's like, no time for pleasantries. You guys were good fighters. Bye. And he disguises himself as someone else so that she can't get him.
What? And I like this too, again, tying into these themes of the end of the world and the pointlessness of war and stuff, is like you get to the end of the day and all these and think about it like in current day, all these world leaders who are pressing the button. Doesn't matter what country, all these guys, they're all the same. When push comes to shove, they're going to let anyone else fall on their sword so that they can live. Yes. And I love that he's pointing that out. All these people that are involved in wars right now, I promise you, if you were like, okay, let's go get them and kill them, which I'm not encouraging, but if that was going to happen, they would make sure that there's like decoys so that they would never be like, Aragorn and be like, I'm the king and you
Yes.
must fight me.
Yeah.
There's no honor anymore amongst world leaders.
Yeah.
And I like how this movie is kind of pointing that out with
Other than
Dementis.
potentially the Ukrainian president.
I forgot about that.
But yes, Zelensky. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about this. But
well, I did say real world leader, so you corrected me on that. That's there's some honor there for sure.
But okay. So yeah, but then more or less she gets him.
Yeah.
Finds out where he is, gets him, and then just a long scene of what is she gonna do to him?
Yeah.
Him just talking to her, like basically saying, revenge.
This I loved.
Well, no, it's not going to do anything for you. Your mom will still be. He doesn't even like remember her,
Yeah.
hardly. And it's like
he remembers Furiosa. He doesn't remember her mom.
Yeah. So so even that, I think he's even saying like, I don't remember. So what does that even matter to you?
Yeah.
But she keeps telling him, bring her. I like that touch where she's like, bring my mom back and bring me back too.
Yeah.
Like bring me back and bring her back. And love that.
But I like the touch where he's not like don't kill me, and he's not saying it's not going to bring you back. Ha 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 ha. He's just like it's like he's being reasonable actually in this moment where he's like, your revenge will mean nothing. It'll mean nothing to me. It will mean nothing to you. It has no meaning.
Yeah.
And I love that about this movie, and that's where I feel like
this sequence was titled Beyond Vengeance.
Yeah. Beyond Thunderdome, now we're Beyond Vengeance. But this was my favorite scene of the movie, and it was because of this conversation with them. And to me, especially when you view it with Fury Road, it feels like this movie, Furiosa, chooses the path of vengeance. Well, she definitely does. And that's what she wants the whole movie. She is able to find vengeance. But at the end of this movie, we know because of the future of Fury Road that the vengeance really is pointless. Like it doesn't accomplish anything.
Mm-hmm.
And yet in Fury Road, she learns to choose hope. And like that is like what this movie is like, an anti-vengeance movie.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I don't know, it's like do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. I just think I need to see this last scene again.
Yeah, it just felt like this movie's saying like this is what happens when you pursue vengeance. You get no relief. Nothing good comes of it.
But don't they say stuff about? I don't think he's necessarily saying this, but like you choose either hate or hope.
I think
if you
don't
kill
they say
me
that in the. I think they say that in Fury Road, don't they?
I don't know.
Okay,
I feel like even at the end of this movie with the voiceover, there he's saying that.
Okay,
but like. It's like that's your choice is to choose hate or hope in your vengeance.
Yeah.
Almost. So I feel like that's what they're saying because it's like she ends up choosing hope through like her vengeance is chosen through hope.
Yeah.
I almost feel like that's what they're trying to say.
I think that's what they are trying to say. I don't think they spell it out like that. Like that literally.
I'm just trying to remember.
Yeah. But yeah, this one drives into the ground to me like what vengeance does, and the next movie she chooses redemption. When she should have chosen that all along, but how do you know to choose it?
Well, she still thinks there's a green place to get back to.
Yeah, but then at the end of the movie, she helps Max and she saves the.
Well, at the end of this movie, she goes back to Immortan Joe, and it's like, couldn't you have just left?
Yeah.
So who's stopping you?
Yeah. But I also like this is always a fun thing is like when you're doing something in the vengeance genre, it's like how do you give the audience the catharsis and the release of like vengeance. And it's very hard to do. And I like how this one, it's like some people said her vengeance wasn't hard enough, and it shows her just shooting him. And then it's like others said that she tortured him for days. Hours, days or whatever, and it shows her like dragging him. And then it's like, but she told me that she planted her vengeance or something like that. And then you see him and he has a tree growing out of him, the peach tree up in the Citadel, and he's still alive. Yeah,
he's like a shell of a person.
Yeah. Which is like, that's beyond vengeance, because that is like as sick as it could get, planting someone and keeping them alive through a tree.
So I'm wondering, with her coming back to Immortan Joe, though, do you think that because of what she's been through and what she's seen in this kingdom, not kingdom, whatever
Village,
this is.
Citadel. Yeah.
That she's like, maybe I can help them.
I think so.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when we meet her in Fury Road, she
probably
is...
Praetorian Jack makes probably really helped her get to that point, too.
Yeah. But in Fury Road, she's like choosing to help and to save. And it's like, I'm lost, but these people aren't. So I'm going to save them. And so, like, when Mad Max is just like the bystander, she's kind of like, are you going to help or not? Like, do something good or don't do anything at all. But don't, like, hold us up right now. You got to help us or not. So I think it's that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
And she learns that through this movie.
Yeah.
So in that regard, it's like, excellent.
Yeah.
You know, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
I will say, this is a point Evan brought up, unless there's anything else to say about that. Is then the movie shows you clips from Fury Road.
They just show an ad for Fury Road, and it's like, not great.
Yeah, it was like, you kind of shot yourself in the foot.
Although I think that some of the people they're showing are people who have died since Fury Road. It's a little bit of a tribute.
Oh, okay.
Which is nice.
Yeah. You see the bullet farmer.
But it's not exactly the effect that it gave, because it just showed Fury Road, and you're just thinking, like, the effects look so much better in that movie.
Right. Because it's
action
showing
was
like...
good in this movie, but even the action was better in that movie.
Yeah, definitely. But we already set that aside. But I just had to point out that I did feel the same way he did, where I'm like, oh, why you shouldn't show me clips of the movie I liked more.
I know. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great movie. It is a great movie, and it's gonna keep growing on me. I think. I think I would put it above Beyond Thunderdome, and I'd put it above Mad Max, but I would put it below
What happens in Road Warrior?
Road Warrior and Fury Road. What happens in it?
Yes.
That's where they go to Gastown, and there's a big... The last, like, 20 minutes of the movie are like Fury Road, where they're just driving, and there's a big, crazy scene.
Yeah.
And I just remember the last time we watched it, it was just like, oh, man. Like, he just basically said, what if I took the last 20 minutes of this movie and made it 2 hours?
Yeah. She's awake, so it's time to wrap this up.
But yeah, so I'd put it smack in the middle.
I think I would agree.
Yeah. Anything else for you, Jordan?
All I have to say is vroom vroom.
That's all you have to say?
Vroom vroom.
Okay, well, I will say tonight, go to Pear Blossom Park in Medford, 6:30. Show starts. It's free. And next week, we have our first week off ever. And then we will return with some thwipping a la Tobey Maguire. It's Spider-Man next week. And go to our Patreon to listen to our episode on Blade Runner 2049. We're going to have less episodes now on the main feed, so you're going to want to sign up so you can get your extra episode a month. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.